What's happening? Happy Halloween, everybody, on this Thursday night, October 31st, getting ready for week 9 of the NFL season. We have a lot to get to, but first, as always, the first question with this podcast as we rock live is what you're drinking. Now, I figured tonight is the last night of October for 2024, so you had to go with an Oktoberfest, and I think I have one of the best Oktoberfests that has ever been created. And this is the Mighty Squirrel Oktoberfest, the Marzen. And this won the 2022 gold medal for the German-style Marzen during the American Beer Festival. This is one of the best Oktoberfests that you can get, that you can buy. And there it is with that cool can. And it is a 5.5 ABV, so not too crazy for you. But that's what I'll be drinking tonight. So get your drinks up, whatever they are: water, soda, beer, wine, liquor. Hold them up. Happy Halloween to you and yours. Sláinte, as they say. And my, oh my, what a beer that is. Let me know what you're drinking. Marilyn jumps in. She says she's drinking the Sam Adams Cherry Wheat. What else? Big fan of Sam Adams is Marilyn. And then we've got Greg says it's his first time catching this podcast live. Well, I'm very happy about that, Greg. Glad that you could join us. I appreciate every single one of you. All right, let's get started with story number 5 this week, getting ready for week 9. And it has to do with wide receivers. Wide receivers have been all over the news during this football season, and it continued this week. Stephon Diggs, bad news for the Texans. Diggs tore his ACL. If you look at Kendrick Bourne, he tore his ACL for the Patriots last year at pretty much the same time, same week. So you could imagine that Diggs is going to likely be on the PUP to start the 2025 season, and it's awful timing for Diggs. It's just awful timing for Diggs. He's going to be a free agent after this season. Now he tears his ACL. He's been in the league for a while. That will no doubt, unfortunately, hurt his value as a free agent. Of course, if you're the Texans, Nico Collins has also been out with a hamstring issue. Hamstrings linger. Now Collins is expected back in week 10, so that's good news for Houston. But now you're looking at it, right? I mean, you've got Diggs out with the ACL. He's done for the year. Nico has been out with a hamstring. Again, those things can linger. Your top 2 wide receivers. You lost one for the season, and you're going to have to deal with an injury for the other one, and you got to continue to manage that injury. So will Houston add a wide receiver? I think it's a legitimate question. You look around, many receivers have been traded already, right? Devontae Adams got traded. Deontay Johnson we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. He got dealt. DeAndre Hopkins got traded last week to Kansas City. So will Houston look to add a receiver? The trade deadline is coming up on Tuesday. So will they get it done? Will they try to get something done? Aside from that, you look at C.J. Stroud and what he's done this year. He's been okay. 13th in passer rating, 12th in QBR, 9th in completion percentage over expected, 17th in expected points added. So he's been okay. I think a lot of people expected more from Stroud, but you also have to understand that Nico Collins has been out. He's trying to gain that chemistry with Stephon Diggs now, who is going to be done for the season. So he's still trying to find his way in Houston with some of these, changes. But he's been okay. I would not be freaked out about C.J. Stroud, but you have to see if he can get by this weekend with what he's going to have. And if you are Nick Caserio, who is the shot caller in Houston, you have to be thinking about adding another wide receiver. Speaking of adding a wide receiver, that's precisely what the Ravens just did. The Ravens this week, they added Deontay Johnson, who's playing for Carolina, former Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver. Deontay Johnson and a 6th-round pick for a 5th-round pick was the trade, and I love this for Baltimore. Makes all the sense in the world. Some of this stuff I talked about last week with Hopkins going to Kansas City. But Lamar Jackson, he's really having an MVP-type season when you look at his numbers. Through the first half of this year, 17 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, just outrageous touchdown to interception ratio. 1st in passer rating, 2nd in QBR, 2nd in expected points added. He has been one of the best quarterbacks in football this year. You could argue that Lamar has been the best quarterback in football. The biggest question, of course, unfortunately for Jackson, and it's going to continue to hover, is whether or not he can make the throws when he needs to make those throws in the biggest games. We've seen him fall short of that. Can he figure it out? Can he get it done this year? Because the Ravens offense has been very good. Derrick Henry has been much better than I expected him to be. Jackson's been great. And by the way, keep an eye on Jackson tomorrow in the practice report because he's had back-to-back DNPs for the Ravens this week. He's been listed as a back and a knee issue, but I was just watching before we went live. I was watching the NFL Network, Tom Pelissero, Ian Rappaport. Neither of those guys seem alarmed about Jackson missing back-to-back practices. Seems more of a management issue because they know how much they ask Jackson to do within the offense. But I love the deal for Deontay Johnson. I mean, you're talking about getting Johnson and a 6th-round pick for a 5th. That's it. That's a great price. And Johnson's not a number 1, but he is certainly a legitimate NFL wide receiver. You could say he's a number 2. He will now be with Zay Flowers, and he'll also be a part of the Bateman wide receiver core. Mark Andrews. Again, Henry's been very good. So they're building up this offense for the Ravens. And I don't know if this is going to be a short-term deal or a long-term deal. Johnson's going to be a free agent, so he's walking into the last year of his contract. I don't think it's a terrible idea to hold on to Deontay Johnson if you're the Ravens, but we'll see what they do. So you got Diggs with the torn ACL. You got Nico Collins coming back reportedly by week 10, so next week. And then you've got Johnson going to the Ravens. I've got more on the Ravens, but before I get to that, let's look at what people are doing. Terry Grant, Diet Pepsi all the way. Every Thursday night, Terry is in on the Diet Pepsi. Greg says he's drinking a Guinness. You know, I don't know if that commercial is right or not, but they had that commercial that said like 10% of people who drink enjoy Guinness. I'm part of the 10%. So I'm with you, Greg. I like a nice Guinness. Tonight I'm having the Oktoberfest Marzen from Mighty Squirrel Brewery. An excellent beer. 5.5 on the ABV. It's a really, really good beer. They're in Waltham, Mass. So you can check that out. Anonymous says, boring at work, so just a water. Oh, here we go with the Rick B5005. A little something, something by Lagunitas. I went to Lagunitas when I lived out in California. Kelly and I checked that place out. Unfortunately, their whole patio area, which is supposed to be awesome, their whole patio area was being worked on. So we didn't get to hang out in the coolest spot, but I hung out at Lagunitas. I thought it was good. I thought it was a really good place, and I thought they had a really good beer. Really, really good beer. Kevin Roberts jumps in, says the Ravens playing chess, not checkers with that trade. Yeah, I really like the trade. All right, let's jump to a couple of super chats before we get to story number 4. Chris Chapman sends a $10 super chat for the Nick Beer money. Football. I appreciate you, Chris. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris, for the 10. It is much appreciated. If you're watching the podcast live here, you can always send your super chats to jump to the front of the line. Chris did that, and Kyle Kirk also did that with a $10 super chat. Cheers. Anthony Richardson is the sole reason why May as a prospect was quote-unquote raw. Compared to Richardson, May is like a 5-year vet. Richardson has over 20 starts at quarterback in his amateur and pro career. Richardson, we're going to get a little bit deeper into Anthony Richardson in a little while, but I watched him play a number of times at Florida. My buddy down in Virginia Beach is a Florida fan, so I watched Anthony Richardson a little bit. And I thought he was just incredibly raw coming out. And he was somewhat of a workout hero, drafted obviously in the top 5 by Indy because of his arm strength, his athleticism, his size. But at Florida, there are a lot of times where you'd watch him and you'd say, can this guy actually play the position consistently? And I think we still have those questions. So thank you for the 10, Kyle. We will dive deeper into Anthony Richardson's story coming up in just a little bit. John says he loves Guinness, but tonight it's just the coffee. All good with the coffee. All right, let's jump to story number 4. And it has to do with the Ravens. We just talked about Deontay Johnson being added to the Ravens wide receiver room, but I have to wonder, is the Ravens defense going to spoil a possible Super Bowl run? Now, when you think about the Ravens, you think about Lamar first, But then you also think about defense, right? The Ravens have almost always had a very good defense. This year, their defense is not as good. They just lost to Cleveland last week in a stunner. I went to the Patriots game. I came home. I said, holy crap, what's going on here? Ravens lost to Cleveland, and they lost to Cleveland after the Ravens were up 24-23, 2 minutes, 36 seconds left in the game. So you're going against Jameis Winston, and you just expect that Ravens defense to show up and to show out in that kind of a situation, right? 2.5 minutes to go. You just got the lead. You would anticipate a Ravens defense to shut it down and say, we're going to win. This is it. It's a W. It's a W. That's not what happened last week. I've got more on the Baltimore defense. But first, take a second of your time. Doesn't take you a lot of time. Doesn't cost you any money. Don't forget, as you watch this podcast, whether it's on YouTube, especially YouTube, but on Facebook, Twitter, don't forget to like. Don't forget to hit that like button. I see a couple of likes from Facebook. Don't forget to like it as you watch it on YouTube as well, because that's how we beat that YouTube algorithm. We like the podcast. So if you like what I do here, don't forget to like that YouTube, that thumbs up, that channel. And during the pod, you can hit that quickly. Also, don't forget to throw a comment in. What's your favorite beer? What's your favorite drink? Also, you could talk football. Will the Ravens defense spoil a possible Super Bowl run? Should the Texans go out and get another wide receiver now that Stephon Diggs is out with a torn ACL for the rest of the year? What'd you think of the Deontay Johnson trade? Don't forget to comment. Those likes and those comments is how we beat the YouTube algorithm. And you can also subscribe. Trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by Thanksgiving. We're 250 away from that. So you can help us by subscribing, hit that notify bell. So like, comment, and subscribe. Back to the Ravens defense. Communication errors. Winston's first touchdown last weekend was a communication error. The Ravens have no pass rush. No pass rush to speak of. 2 sacks last week. 2 sacks on 41 pass attempts. 2 sacks on 41 pass attempts. Third down defense let the Ravens down last weekend. Cleveland, 8 of 15 on third down. Now, I know Deshaun Watson stunk out loud. I get it. But Jameis Winston's Jameis Winston. He ain't a top 10 quarterback. And he should not be dicing you up on third down. The fact that the Browns were 8 of 15 on third down speaks volumes about that Ravens defense. It's just not the kind of defense you expect from them. They even benched Marcus Williams last week. Starting safety. The guy's making almost $19 million this year. And they benched him. So you can see John Harbaugh trying to press certain buttons and get this defense to play better than it's been playing. When you look at their biggest issue, though, it really is the pass rush. 25th in pressure rate. They're 27th in the league in pass yards per play. So they're getting ripped up in chunks in the pass game. They are 29th on third down. Again, goes back to what's going on last weekend against the Browns, 8 of 15. This Ravens defense is 29th in the league on third down. And if you are the Ravens, you added Deontay Johnson, which is a nice piece, but your ultimate goal is to win the whole damn thing. And you've got to look at who else is in your conference. With this defense, 25th in pressure rate, 29th on third down, giving up a late lead against Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns. If your defense doesn't get settled, do you think you're going to beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs? Do you think you're going to be able to beat Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills? You're going to be able to beat those high-powered quarterbacks with this kind of defense, especially if you can't get pass rush? So this defense for the Ravens could spoil a possible Super Bowl run. They've got to get better. All right, story number 3. The Indianapolis Colts have decided to bench Anthony Richardson. Is it too early to call A-Rich a bust? We just talked about it a minute ago. Very raw coming out of Florida. And the biggest issue to me, did you see what happened last week? If you didn't see what happened last week, Richardson actually tapped out of the game. He tapped out of the game. This wasn't after a 40-yard run, a 50-yard run. He tapped out of the game. He tapped his helmet. He asked out of the football game. And I don't know if I've ever seen a quarterback do that. That's a serious concern for me, because if he's going to be your leader, if he's going to be the guy that's going to get into the fights with you and all that, right? How can anybody that's on that team look at A-Rich and think, all right, this guy's truly in it for the battle when he's tapping his helmet to come out? And they asked him in the post game, and he said he was tired. He was tired. That's inexcusable. That's ridiculous. And so I have serious questions about Richardson after seeing that play out last weekend. I had questions whether or not he could be a consistent quarterback at the NFL level for a number of reasons, accuracy, which we'll get into in a minute, but very raw guy on the field. And now you've got him tapping out and saying he was tired, asking out of a game. Divisional game, tight game, asking out of the game. And now he's been benched this week for Joe Flacco. Is that a mistake by the Colts? Do you think that's a mistake to bench Anthony Richardson? Now, Dan Orlovsky posted after watching Richardson's tape, significantly better than the stat line / box score. Significantly. So Dan Orlovsky says that Anthony Richardson, if you look at the box score, it's brutal, but Richardson was better than the box score. Then Ben Solak of ESPN wrote about Richardson. Richardson has completed just 44.4% of his passes this century. Only Achilles Smith. I don't know how many of you remember Achilles Smith. Only Achilles Smith in 2000 was worse when it comes to completion percentage. But Solak writes, of the 816 quarterbacking seasons since 2000, Richardson's 12.3 air yards per target is the highest mark. Solak writes, Richardson's depth of target is largely the result of his own play style. His expected completion percentage was 47.2%, the second lowest for a game since the start of the 21 season. So what Solak's argument here is that Richardson's completion percentage is obviously very, very low. But Solak's making the argument that his completion percentage is so low, not because he's just super inaccurate, crazy inaccurate. It's low because he's being asked to chuck the football down the field more than anybody else in the league. And so when you throw down the field as much as Richardson has, those are low percentage throws. And so when you're throwing that football downfield, low percentage throws, the expected completion percentage is going to be much, much lower than another offense operating with, a system where you're throwing short, intermediate, and every once in a while deep. Low percentage play calls equals low completion percentage. That's what Solak is talking about with Richardson. He says most of Richardson's incompletions are aggressive choices that were anywhere from great to poor, but still catchable throws that weren't paid off by his receivers or offensive line. He does admit, Solak, that there are some absolute stinker throws from Richardson, but says, I don't know if you could expect anything more. You could ask anything more of Richardson, given how they're running the offense. So interesting point of view from Ben Solak of ESPN. But here are my questions. Did the tap out? Did that tap out force the switch? Did Shane Steichen, head coach of the Colts, see his quarterback tap out of the game and say, this guy quit on us? He quit on us. We got to sit him. How much of a role did that play? Did some guys in the locker room make that a thing? So it'll be very interesting to see how long this goes. Is it for the rest of the season? If they did not bench Richardson because of the tap out, I would not sit Richardson. And I'm not telling you he's going to be a good NFL quarterback, but I would not sit Richardson if I were Indy, because what is your point? You drafted the guy in the top 5. You need to evaluate him. He needs to get as many reps as possible. When you drafted him, you knew he was incredibly raw. You decided to play him. He got hurt last year. So he missed a lot of time last year. He didn't play a lot at Florida. He didn't play a ton of college football. So what is the plan? If your plan was to be patient with Richardson, then you should have been patient last year. This is not a new coaching staff. It's not a new scheme. If patience was going to be the priority, then it should have started last year. So I don't get this. You need to know whether or not Richardson is a bona fide NFL quarterback. Now, maybe you've already made that decision. Maybe you think he's done. Maybe you think he's steak dinner. But if I'm the Colts, I'm giving Richardson every possible chance to develop and get better on the field. This is his second season. He needs those reps. And I spent a top 5 pick on that guy. I need to be absolutely sure that Richardson is not the answer if I'm going to bench him. And I think this is short-sighted or long-sighted. Isn't short-sighted when it's long-sighted? That always confuses me. But you're too worried about the right now. And Steichen even told the media today that Joe Flacco gives them the best chance to win right now. I don't necessarily disagree with that. But what is your priority? Is it winning right now, or is it trying to figure out if Richardson can be that guy? You invested a top 5 pick in him. I think it's the latter and not the former. And by the way, my other question about Richardson is, Ben Solak writing about the deep shots, and that's why his completion percentage is so low. If he can only work in that kind of offense, that's a huge problem, right? If he can only work in an offense that he can chuck it downfield and every once in a while he's going to complete one of those throws, you're not going to have a consistent enough offense. You're not going to survive in the NFL. You can't keep taking low percentage shots downfield as your offense. It's not going to work out. All right, what are you drinking? Let me know what you're drinking. I'm drinking an Oktoberfest Marzen from Mighty Squirrel Brewery in Waltham, Mass. There it is. I guess got to kick it out. Looks weird, right? Gets rid of that, so go with that. Yeah. It's a 5.5 ABV, the 2022 gold medal for German-style Marzen during the American Beer Festival. This is literally one of the best Oktoberfest, one of the best Marzens that I have ever had. I love it. I bought an 8-pack a couple of weeks ago at a local liquor store. It is fantastic. If you like Marzen's Oktoberfest, I suggest you check it out. Let me know what you're drinking. And as we hang out on this Halloween night, happy Halloween. Not a huge Halloween guy, but happy Halloween. As we hang out, don't forget to do us a few things to help out this podcast. Like, comment, subscribe. Those 3 things. Like, comment, subscribe. How do you feel about some of the things we've talked about? If you were Indianapolis, would you have benched Anthony Richardson? Send a comment. It helps us beat that algorithm on YouTube. All right, before we get to story number 2, I got to jump to story number 1 in my heart, and that's Terry Grant dropping a $50 super chat right on the table. Thank you, Terry, again. Your generosity, always say it, means the world to me. You have been supporting this program each week. You're a Patreon member at my Patreon page. Cheap plug, patreon.com/Nick Cattles. I will ask Kevin's question since mine are always lame. I wouldn't say that. How do you feel about trading for, I think he means Evan Neal or Wills as an option? Terry, thank you. I appreciate it again for the $50 super chat. This is more of a Patriots-based question. How do I feel? Well, look, Evan Neal's a guy who he was picked high up in the draft by the Giants. He's never really fulfilled the potential. I believe he was coming out of Alabama, if I remember correctly, which I think I do. He's an Alabama guy. And he's never really met that potential of being a top pick at that position. And he's buried on the depth chart. So I would be okay with trading for Neal. I don't think he's going to be, the immediate answer at left tackle if that's what you're looking for. But I don't mind taking a flyer. I think he's a lottery ticket at this point. I don't think the Giants would ask a lot for Neal. So I don't hate that idea. Wills is somebody who, he was injured early in the year, plays for the Cleveland Browns, known as one of the better tackles in football. What's the price for a Wills? And I'd also say Vidarian Lowe. How did the Patriots feel about Vidarian Lowe? On my Patriots podcast yesterday, I talked about Vidarian Lowe. His pass pro block grade is 40th in the league, which you might think is a little low, but when you think about it, there's 64 starting tackles, 40th in the league, and this is his first year as a starting tackle. Do they think they can get more out of Vidarian Lowe? I would look at the 2025 draft for tackle if I were the Patriots. I'd be looking at Banks. I'd be looking at Campbell. I'd be looking at Ursary from Minnesota, I believe. some other guys. Simmons at The Ohio State was really making a charge, but he got hurt a few weeks ago and blew up his knee. So he's probably going to drop in the first round, but that's what I'd be looking at. I would be looking at first round for that tackle spot if I didn't believe that Vederian Lowe can figure things out. All right. Every week we do this, by the way. Let me have a sip of my beer. It's been a while. Let me know what you're drinking. Every week, 7 p.m. Eastern, we do this. We talk NFL. You should join us with a beer, a wine, maybe some liquor, maybe some Diet Pepsi, like our friend Terry. Maybe if you're at work drinking some water, like our guy Anonymous or our woman Anonymous. But join us every week here, Thursday nights at 7 p.m. on YouTube. All right. Story number two. Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? Frustrated. Another week, another Cowboys loss. They're third place in the NFC East at 3-4. And not only are they in third place in the NFC East, not only are they 3-4, but this is with healthy Dak Prescott and healthy CD Lamb. That's a problem, folks. This is not what people expected of the Cowboys. Even if you don't believe in the Cowboys, I'm not a believer in the Cowboys because I think Mike McCarthy is not a very good head coach. I've said that for years. I am not a Mike McCarthy guy. But in the very least, the Cowboys have won a lot of games in the regular season. And you would think they would be near the top of the NFC East. You could pretty much write them down for 10-plus wins. And this year, they're struggling. Offensively, Dak has been bad. 24th in passer rating. There's a bunch of other stats I could give you, but he has not been good. Their run game has not been good. 23rd in success rate for this Cowboys run game. So they haven't been running the football. They have a lack of wide receiver depth. Check this out. I did some work this week on the Cowboys receivers. So CD Lamb has caught 45 passes for 613 yards and 4 touchdowns, okay? So Lamb has 45 receptions, 613 yards, 4 touchdowns. All the other wide receivers on the Cowboys combined have caught 56 passes. So all the other wide receivers on this roster have caught only 11 more passes than Lamb. 659 yards. So less than 60 yards more than CD Lamb. All the other wide receivers. And CD Lamb has 4 touchdowns. The every other receiver on the Cowboys combined 4 touchdowns. They are thin at wide receiver. They are not very explosive at running back. And their quarterback, who they paid a bunch of money to just a couple months ago, is having his worst season. Other than that, things are fine. Defensively, Micah Parsons has been out. Reportedly, he's going to be out again this week. Of course, Bland has been out. They are getting pressure without Parsons, which might surprise you, but they're also blitzing a lot. Dallas is in the top 10 in blitz rate, and they've given up the 4th highest amount of yards per pass. So, yes, they're getting pressure, but they're blitzing to get that pressure. And because they're blitzing to get the pressure, their secondary, especially without Bland, is giving up chunk plays. So you start to see all of that roll downhill, right? Offensively, not enough run game. CD Lamb is the only receiver that Dak can truly trust right now. Defensively, they're having to give up a lot to get some pressure, and because of that, they're giving up some plays. Also, giveaway, takeaway, turnover differential. The Cowboys are a -8. Dak is tied for the second most interceptions in football with 8. So they're turning the ball over. And you want to talk about awful in the red zone? The Dallas Cowboys suck out loud in the red zone. Both sides of the ball. They have the worst red zone defense in all of football. The worst. 32nd in the league. Offensively, even with Dak Prescott and Lamb and Zeke Elliott, who's pretty good, right? Had a good year last year. Even with those guys, the Cowboys are 31st in the NFL in the red zone on offense. They have the second worst red zone offense and the worst red zone defense in football. I mean, what do they do right? They got a great kicker. Aubrey's a great kicker. But the coaching staff hasn't been very good. The quarterback hasn't been very good. They have no wide receiver depth. The running back room is lacking. They've been awful in the red zone. It's not good in Dallas. It is not good in Dallas. Here are some other stats on the Cowboys. You ready? This is from Warren Sharp. The Cowboys have trailed by double digits for 39.5% of their offensive snaps. So almost 40% of their snaps offensively, they've been down double digits. The only team that is worse is the Panthers, and they're over 51%. Condolences to Carolina fans. The Cowboys have turned the ball over on 17.1% of their possessions. Only the Titans and the Raiders have a higher turnover rate than the Cowboys do. The Cowboys are the only remaining team in the league without a running play of 20 or more yards this season. I talked about the lack of explosivity in their run game. There it is with that statistic. They are literally the only team in football that has not had a run play for 20 or more yards. Just brutal. And their defense can't stop the run. Worst rushing EPA on defense, minus 17.2. It is just a bunch of bad statistics and analytics for the Dallas Cowboys. And the next 4 games, they play at Atlanta, obviously leading the NFC South. They play against Philly in Dallas, but Philly has really turned it up the past couple weeks. Then they play against Houston, and Houston, of course, is a playoff team right now. And then they play at Washington. Washington's the surprise team of the year, and Jaden Daniels has been awesome. So Atlanta, Philly, Houston, Washington. Right now, their next 4 games are against teams that would be in the playoffs today, with all the other problems I just gave you. But I think Jerry Jones will stick with Mike McCarthy because he loves sticking with his guys. Just ask Jason Garrett. All right, we got the top story coming up in a minute. But first, Anonymous, so sick of Jerry Jones, he needs to hand the reins over to his kids, see what they can do without dad. You're a big Stephen Jones fan, huh? Thank you, Anonymous. Appreciate the 10. Jerry's not going to step away. There's no way. Jerry is not going to step away. He loves what he does way too much. He loves being the center of attention. He loves doing those post-game scrums. He loves going on the radio and going after the radio hosts. He loves what he does, and he's not going to retire. He's not going to walk away. It's just not going to happen. They've got talent. Mike McCarthy's a bad head coach. I'm just not a fan of him. They got talent. Now, they don't have as much talent as they've had in past years, especially at wide receiver and running back. They let Pollard walk. Derrick Henry wanted to play for Dallas, and they didn't pay Henry. They wouldn't bring him in. And now you see what Henry's doing in Baltimore. That looks like a catastrophic decision by Jerry Jones and the personnel team in Dallas. So it's a mess. Thanks for the 10, Anonymous. I appreciate you. Chris Chapman says Nick needs to go to Germany for Oktoberfest. It's one of my dreams. It's on the bucket list, Chris. It's on the bucket list. We were supposed to go to Europe, Kelly and I, this summer. We never made it out there, but I want to go to Ireland. I want to go to Germany. I want to go to England, like to hit London for a day or two. Of course, Italy. So those are some places I would love to go, but tops of my list is like Germany and Ireland. If you can't tell, I'm a big beer fan. I'm a big, bar fan. I would love to be in Germany during Oktoberfest. I got a friend, her husband was in the service, and he was telling me he lived in Germany for a couple of years, telling me all about it. I would absolutely love to do it. Jermaine Brown says, I don't know. They let Pollard go. Yeah. I don't know why they did that. I do not know why they did that at all. All right, let's get to our top story on this Halloween night. Are the Jets dead? As we get ready to watch the Jets tonight against the Texans, they're coming off a loss against New England, of all teams. I'm a Patriots guy. I was at the game. I still can't believe the Jets lost to the Patriots, but they did. They lost to the Patriots in dramatic fashion. Jacoby Brissett come from behind win. And the Jets are running out of excuses. They fired Robert Saleh. That was supposed to be the fix so far. They moved Nathaniel Hackett to like some corner office in the building that nobody visits and promoted Todd Downing. That has not worked wonders. They then went out and they acquired Devontae Adams. Adams has not been great the first couple weeks. Obviously, give him time. It's a trade. Might take a little bit. But Adams has not been the immediate answer. Rodgers, before the Patriots game, said, we're just not having fun. The guy on the field that looks like he's having the least amount of fun is Rodgers himself. So it wasn't Saleh so far. It wasn't Hackett so far. It wasn't, Adams wasn't the magic elixir. And Rodgers, he's not mobile right now. He's not moving around well. He gets rid of the football very quickly. Looks like a guy who doesn't want to get touched, just wants to live to see the next play. He's not allowing some of these wide receiver routes to actually get open, not allowing time for the concepts to work. He's just getting rid of the football ASAP. Against the Patriots, he had 2 delay of games. He waits forever. He waits until there's 1 second left on the play clock constantly. 2 delay of games. One of the delay of games was right before a 2-point conversion attempt, which is just ridiculous, especially given his experience. In the post game, he was miserable, hat over his eyes, didn't want to talk to anybody. It's a moment of darkness or whatever the hell he said. And on the field, he looks miserable. On the field, off the field, he looks miserable. He smiles for Pat McAfee because Pat McAfee's paying him $1 million to do the interviews. It's bad. It's bad. Jeff Ulbrich, interim head coach, he was tasked to turn this thing around mid-season. Do you think he's going to be able to do that? You trust Jeff Ulbrich to be the answer? I don't. The offense is vanilla. They don't do much that's, creative. The defense has taken a step back since Saleh was fired. And they play Houston tonight. Playoff team right now. One of the better teams in football. Now, of course, Houston will be without Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins. It's a short week, so anything can happen. But they play Houston tonight. Then they play at Arizona, Indy, and Seattle. They have a chance. I'm not going to sit here and say they're dead just yet. They have a chance. If they win 3 out of the next 4, they got a shot. Can they win 3 out of the next 4? Houston, Arizona, Indy, Seattle. I don't think it's impossible. But I think it's going to be very tough. But if they could win 3 out of the next 4, then they have the Dolphins twice. The Dolphins have been bad. They play the Jaguars, and then they have the Rams. So do I think it's likely? Hell to the no. But I would not pronounce them dead just yet. Terry jumps in. $5 super chat. Forget for Maryland and I lose, Jets lose, and bye Aaron. Not a fan of Aaron Rodgers, I see. So I'm not a big Rodgers guy either. And I don't think he's a very good leader. I don't think he's, I thought that when he was with the Packers. Last few years with the Packers, it was all about Rodgers. And so now, again, he's miserable on the field. He's miserable off the field. He's 40 years old. He's going to be 41 in December. He's dealing with multiple ailments, ankle, knee, hammy, whatever the hell else is going on with him. And you wonder. I mean, they already fired that coach. What do you do next? You're running out of options. You fired the head coach. The guy who's calling defensive plays is your interim head coach. You ain't getting rid of him. You change play callers on the offensive side. What else is there to do? I mean, this right now is sink or swim. I don't think there are any other changes coming around the corner for the Jets, at least in season. And then you think about their long term and what might come about. I mean, Rodgers, 41. If this ends up being a lost season, you're going to probably go out and get a new head coach. And now you're going through a whole new coaching staff. You're going through new schemes. It's not good in New York. They got to turn this thing around. Not dead yet. I give them like a 10% chance of life, but it's not good. Not good at all. You know what is good? It's Oktoberfest Marzen from Mighty Squirrel, 5.5 ABV, tickety-tackety. It's a fantastic beer. If you like Marzens, I would suggest you have one of these. Very good. Very, very good. Waltham, Mass. Fantastic beer. You should check it out. What also is good, if you like this podcast that helps us beat that algorithm, click that thumbs up, throw a comment in. Let us know how you feel about Rodgers and the Jets. Are they dead? So like, comment, and subscribe. Spread the word, everybody. We're trying to build this community, and the only way we can do it is with your support. So like, comment, subscribe, spread the word. Tell NFL fans we do this every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Especially tell NFL fans who might enjoy a beverage, which is all of us, but if they like an alcoholic beverage, if they like beer, I have some good suggestions. So like, comment, subscribe, spread the word. Everybody enjoy week 9. Enjoy the rest of your Halloween night. Have a great weekend. We'll be back next Thursday, 7 p.m. right here on YouTube. Until then, it's Nick Cattles and the Crafts and Kickoffs podcast. I appreciate every single one of you.